Generals die in bed. Chapter 12. Vengeance. The fire lifts. Out in front, we hear the tanks blazing away at the enemy's lines. The air clears a little. Out of the thin smoke, hazy, silhouetted figures emerge. "Here they come," we shout to each other. We bring our rifles to our hips, half on guard. The figures run with funny, jerky steps towards us, holding their hands high above their heads. We open rifle fire as we advance. The silhouettes begin to topple over. It is just like target practice. We advance. They come closer. There are hundreds of them. They are unarmed. They open their mouths wide as though they are shouting something of great importance. The rifle fire drowns out their words. Doubtless they are asking for mercy. We do not heed. We are avenging the sinking of the hospital ship. We continue to fire. Everything is indistinct in the smoke, and it is not easy to pick them off. They are nearly on top of us. There is a look of amazement in their faces as we shoot. We are firing point blank now. The gray figures continue to fall, one by one, until only a handful is left. They realize they are doomed, and they scream. We can hear them now, even above the rifle fire, we are so close. "Bitte! Bitte!" Please, please. Their voices are shrill. They are mostly youngsters. They throw themselves into the crater of a shell hole. They cower there. Some of our men walk to the lip of the hole and shoot into the huddled mass of Germans. Clasped hands are held up from out of the funnel-shaped grave. The hands shake eloquently, asking for pity. There is none. Our men shoot into the crater. In a few seconds, only a squirming mass is left. As I pass the hole, I see lips of a few moving. I turn away. We continue to advance. Still there is no resistance. Suddenly, the earth in front of us begins to shoot up little fountains of dirt. Rifle fire. We begin to run. In front of us there is an incline, and beyond a ridge. We run faster. Penny falls. We run still faster. The fire becomes hotter. Men begin to fall. Machine guns hammer in front of us. My section throws itself into a shell hole. We wait for the fire to subside. The tanks are out in front of us. We will wait. Our colonel crawls into the hole. "What the hell are you doing here? Get out," he shouts, pointing to the ridge ahead of us. We share the pans of ammunition between us. I carry the Lewis gun. We are dead tired and start to run towards the ridge. On all sides of us, men are running with slow, clumsy movements. The machine gun bounces on my shoulder. The ammunition pans clatter against the backs of those who carry them. Each step becomes agony. At last we reach the foot of the hill. We start up. It is hard to breathe. It is hot, and we drip with sweat. Behind and on top of the hill, the machine guns spurt and sweep. The blood rushes through my head like a thundering torrent. My body is a hammering cauldron of sound. My ears ring, my head buzzes. My heart knocks like a faulty racing motor piston. Overhead, an occasional shell crashes into fragments, but this is not what holds our eyes glued ahead of us in hypnotic terror. On the top of the ridge, little spurts of yellow earth leap up. They have withdrawn from the ridge and are now sweeping it with machine gun fire. We quicken our pace. On and on. Mess tins and entrenching tools strapped to our backs clang and bang against our buttocks. Halfway up the hill, we slow down. We are weighted down by our burdens. Our movements are like those of one pursued in a nightmare. On and up. We are nearer the top. A few more steps and we will fling ourselves down on the crest of the ridge and get the gun into action. A few more steps. Our lungs and throats whistle. Our faces are reddish blue with exertion. The veins in our necks stand out like black twisted cords. On the flanks the ridge is taken. Shells explode everywhere. The little spurts of yellow earth continue to leap up in front of us, as though mischievous boys were throwing stones from behind the hill. But from behind the hill comes the noise as though 1,000 riveting machines had gone mad. We are on top of the ridge. A few more steps to the other side. I stumble and fall. I jump to my feet and run a few steps. I fall again. I try to get on my feet, but my right leg gives way. My right foot feels numb. I look at it. It is spurting a ruby fountain. The top of the bubbling stream glistens in the sun. I feel empty inside, nauseous. I am frightened. As though speaking to a stranger, I say, "My God, I am wounded." I look at the blood with surprise. I roll into a shell hole for safety. Our guns are hammering into the valley below. They begin to move forward. I lie where I am. The sound of the fighting moves away from me, farther, farther. The enemy is falling back. I look at my foot. It is still spurting blood. An artery must be cut. Something must be done. I make my handkerchief into a tourniquet and tie it tightly above my ankle. I twist it until my foot feels cold. The blood ceases to spurt and drips now. Drip, drip. I am weak. My mouth is dry and my throat cries for water. I look into my water bottle. It is empty. I remember that I emptied it coming through the biting smoke of the barrage. I lean against the side of the cone-shaped shell hole and watch the dark red blood ooze out of the hole in my boot onto the yellow earth and sink in. The noise of the battle sounds fainter and fainter. I am alone in this hole. Nearby I hear men groaning and howling. I forgot all about the others when I saw the blood leaping from my heavy, dirty boot. An hour passes. The boot is covered with nearly black, hardened blood. I am wearing a boot of congealed blood, it seems. Wounded, I say to myself again and again. Wounded. Home. No more war now. No more lice. A bed. I am glad. I look gratefully at the torn boot, at the blood-soaked piece of earth on which it limply rests. I am glad. Glad. Soon I will see lights coming from houses and hear the voices of women and feel their cool hands on my face. Yes. I am happy. I begin to cry. A sharp pain shoots up my leg. I feel in my pockets for a cigarette. Fortunately, I have one. I light up and fill my lungs with the soothing smoke. I exhale with a sigh of happy relief. My pain seems less. I am thirsty. My mouth is gummy for the lack of saliva. I crawl out of the shell hole, dragging my wounded foot after me. I will find one of the killed and take his water bottle. I slide into a large shell crater. A man lies huddled at the bottom. It is Broadbent. One of his legs hangs by a mere strip of skin and flesh to his thigh. He opens his eyes and smiles weakly. His face is bathed in sweat and pain. His lips move slightly. He is speaking. I put my head close to his and listen. I can't look at it. Tell me, is it off? He whispers. I lift his head up and give him a drink of the water I have found. It is lukewarm. He drinks. At the bottom of the hole there is a wide black pool of blood. His partly amputated leg is twisted at a grotesque angle. Suddenly the strip of skin and flesh breaks. The leg moves a little. Tell me, is it off? I cannot answer him. The pool of blood grows as though it were fed by a subterranean spring. It fills the narrow, conical bottom of the hole. He lies with his face twisted so that he does not see his leg. All the time, in the night when I'd think, this is the thing I was scared of most. He moans. His face is a dirty white. It is turning green. His eyes are half closed. His breathing becomes heavier. The deep whistling intake sound above all the other sounds of the field. I move to alter my position. His eyes follow me, beseeching me not to forsake him. I reassure him. Is it off? All of it, I mean? He asks. Rest quiet, I say, avoiding his question. The stretcher-bearers will soon be here. He looks at my foot and smiles faintly. You're lucky. A blighty. No more fatigues. Time passes. The heavy, blistering August sun drags itself higher into the sky. The noise of the battle is a dull rumble now. Midday insects drone sleepily. In the side of the shell hole there is an opening of an ant-hill. I watch the beady insects scurrying in and out. Two of them struggle to carry a little ball of ordure uphill. Again and again it topples them over. They try again, others come to their aid, and finally it is taken into the dark little hole. After a long while he speaks again. I know it isn't off. I can feel my toe when I wriggle it. It can't be off. but the leg lies motionless near the pool of blood. He does not look to see, however. His breath comes faster. He looks up to the globe of fire, which seems to hang motionless in the sky. Tears roll down his dirty green cheeks. I know it. I'm dying. God. And I'm glad. I don't want to go back like this. He moves his hand listlessly towards his thigh. His face glistens in the sun. Mother, he whimpers like a child. Mother. Like the hundreds of other men I had seen die, Broadbent dies like a little boy, too, weeping, calling for his mother. Tears cease to stream down his face. He lies perfectly still. In the rear I hear the stretcher-bearers calling to each other. The hospital train moves slowly towards Boulogne. It stops here and there to pick up more cargo. We come to a halt, and a bright-faced Cockney girl comes into our car. She wears the uniform of a walk. In one of the berths a man has died during the journey, but this does not deter us from joking with the newcomer. We shout our greetings to the girl. What's the matter with you? I'm sick, going home to Blighty. You don't look sick. But I am. What are you sick of? I've got mumps under the waistcoat. Mumps under the... I'm going to have a baby. 10 quid and a long leave. She smiles. We stop at the junction near an officer's hospital. The door of the car is swung open and a man is carried aboard. The orderlies rest the stretcher in the aisle of the car and look for a berth for the newcomer. He is a young German subaltern. He is pallid with pain. He looks at us coldly as we greet him and does not answer. He turns to one of the orderlies. He speaks in perfect English. If this is occupied by privates, I ask that I be removed to another car. The men in the berths hoot and shout. Throw the bastard off! We don't want the damned swine. Too good for us, eh, squarehead? The officer maintains a frozen composure under the barrage of oaths and taunts which assail him. Finally, he turns to one of the orderlies. Well, are you going to take me to an officer's van? The orderly hesitates and says, Orders were to bring you in here. He hesitates and adds, Sir. The subaltern looks behind him as though he were an automaton and says, I wish to see the commanding officer of the train. The orderly leaves to find the medical officer in charge. There is a tense silence in the van. The subaltern lies on his stretcher unconcerned. In a little while the orderly returns, and the German is carried into another van. From one of the upper berths a voice, choked with hatred, says, God, seems like only their bloody privates is Huns. Their officers is... He spits the last word out with disgust. Gentlemen. After a moment he adds, and we're... He cannot find the word and lapses into silence. Another voice says, What the hell did you think this was, a privates' war? Listen, brother, all we gotta do is fight it, that's all. We are lying on our stretchers on the quay at Boulogne, waiting to be carried onto the hospital ship. We wait for hours. It is nearly evening. A light drizzle begins to fall. Under the lights, the fine drops of rain sparkle on the grey regulation blankets. The wound in my foot begins to ache as though it were being probed. An orderly passes. I ask him for a cigarette. He stops for a moment to talk with me. Is it a dangerous crossing, I ask. They say they torpedo them once in a while, like the Landovery Castle. The Landovery Castle? He laughs contemptuously. That was bloody murder, brother. Our officers ought to be shot for that. She was carrying supplies and war material. It's a goddamn shame, that's what I say. He looks over his shoulder at the looming black outlines of the waiting ship. You're lucky, he says. This one is only carrying wounded. The Landovery Castle, carrying supplies, war material. I see the general reading us the report of the sinking just before the Battle of Amiens. I see the bright sun shimmering on his brass. I hear his cold, dispassionate voice. Couldn't swim, poor chaps. Wanton act. Must not go unavenged. I remember the funny, jerking steps of the prisoners as they came running towards us with their hands held high above their heads. I see the clasped hands lifted over the lip of the shell hole as we fired into it, clasped hands silently asking for pity. The orderly's voice breaks in. Well, give my regards to Blighty. Have one for me. I am carried up the gangplank.